Good evening and welcome to our daily devotional reading. I do have to apologize. I just came back I was out the whole day, so I couldn't record before. And then I just came back from a social event. So I am completely tipsy. We had a team painting, which I thought was extraordinarily fun. Kudos to the people who organized it. The team that I was in, ended up drawing something like the Entwives. We found the Entwives. I do want to share this. It's an original painting, so there's no copyright on this. We did it ourselves. I did the trunk. Well, I painted the trunk. Someone else drew the trunk. I think it's gorgeous. I am unfortunately only sexually attracted to men, but I can appreciate beauty when I see it. And so we found the Entwives. If anyone has a way to contact the Ents, we should send me a message, and we will connect the two. I am so sorry. I didn't intend to be this drunk. The problem is, I really got into the painting. Oftentimes we were like 4 to 5, because I think we were a team. We were supposed to be a team of 3 or 4, but everyone wanted to be in our team, so we ended up being a team of 5. And there were times where all 5 of us were like literally in front of the easel painting, which was so much fun. But I really like painting, so the problem was that whenever someone saw my hands were empty, or the one hand without the paintbrush was empty, like I didn't even use blue. Oh, you can't see. Oh, you can see it a little bit. I didn't even use blue. I did the brown, but I'm full of blue for some reason. I also, like, whenever someone painted blue, and I just made sure the lines were drawn back if they went over my tree. Where was I? Oh, yes. Whenever someone saw that my one hand was empty, they would bring me a drink. And I was so enthusiastic to get back to the paint that I would just down it. And I think I had like 2 or 3 those ball things. Meatballs type of things. So I'm so sorry that you have to see me like this, but it was a lot of fun, and I spent 3 minutes just explaining, and that's not the intention. But hey, maybe we can connect the Entwives and the Ents, so it's worth it in the end. Let's take a deep breath and pray for the best. Maybe the muse will take over in my intoxicated state. If not, there's always tomorrow to get back to prefrontal cortex activity. I should not speak tonight. Socrates. See whether you can follow me better now. Socrates can recognize Theodorus and Theaetetus, but he sees neither of them, nor does he perceive them in any other way. He cannot then by any possibility imagine his own mind that Theaetetus is Theodorus. Imagine in his own mind that Theaetetus is Theodorus. Am I not right? You are quite right. Then that was the first cause of which I spoke. Yes. The second case was that I, knowing one of you and not knowing the other, and perceiving neither, can never think him whom I know to be him whom I do not know. True. In the third case, not knowing and not perceiving either of you, I cannot think that one of you whom I do not know is the other whom I do not know. I need not again go over the catalogue of excluded cases in which I cannot form a false opinion about you and Theodorus, either when I know both or when I am in ignorance of both, or when I know one and not the other. And the same of perceiving. Do you understand me? I do. The only possibility of erroneous opinion is when knowing you and Theodorus and having on the waxen block, focus, and having on the waxen block the impression of both of you, given as by a seal, but seeing you imperfectly and at a distance, I try to assign the right impression of memory to the right visual impression, and to fit this into its own print. If I succeed, recognition will take place, but if I fail and transpose them, putting the foot into the wrong shoe, that is to say, putting the vision of either of you onto the wrong impression, or in my mind like the sight in a mirror, which is transferred from right to left, by reason of some similar affection, then heterodoxy and false opinion ensues. Theaetetus, yes, Socrates, you have described the nature of opinion with wonderful exactness. Socrates. Or again, when I know both of you and perceive as well as know one of you, but not the other, and my knowledge of him does not accord with perception, that was the case put by me just now, which you did not understand. No, I did not. I meant to say that when a person knows and perceives one of you, his knowledge coincides with his perception. He will never think him to be some other person, whom he knows and perceives, and the knowledge of whom coincide with his perception, for that also was the case supposed. True. But there was a remission of the future case, further case, in which, as we now say, false opinion may arise when knowing both and seeing or having some other sensible perception of both, I fail in holding the seal over against the corresponding sensation. Like a bad archer, I miss and fall wide of the mark. And this is called falsehood. Swedos, the Greek. So it's not, what is that word that people always say sin is? It means missing the mark. I can't. But it's not that. It's swedos, falsehood. Theaetetus. Yes, it is rightly so called. Socrates. When therefore perception is present to one of the seals or impressions, but not to the other, and the mind fits the seal of the absent perception and the one which is present, in any case of this sort, the mind is deceived. In a word, if our view is sound, there can be no error or deception about things which a man does not know and has never perceived, but only in things which are known and perceived. In these alone, opinion turns and twists about, and becomes alternately true and false. True when the seal and impressions of sense meet straight and opposite, false when they go awry and crooked. Theaetetus. Is not that Socrates is not that Socrates nobly said? Socrates. Nobly, yes, but wait a little and hear the explanation, and then you will say so with more reason. For to think truly is noble, and to be deceived is base. Undoubtedly. And the origin of truth and error is as follows. Oof, only if it was that easy. When the wax in the soul of anyone is deep and abundant, and smooth and perfectly tempered, then the impressions which pass through the senses and sink into the heart of the soul, as Homer says in a parable, the heart of the soul, that's beautiful. Meaning to indicate the likeness of the soul to wax. These, I say, being pure and clear, and having a sufficient depth of wax, are also lasting. And minds such as these easily learn and easily retain, and are not liable to confusion, but have true thoughts, for they have plenty of room, and having clear impressions of things, as we term them, quickly distribute them into their proper places on the block. And such men are called wise. Do you agree? Entirely. But when the heart of anyone is shaggy, a quality which the all-wise poet commends, or muddy and of impure wax, or very soft or very hard, then there is a corresponding defect in the mind. The soft are good at learning, but apt to forget, and the hard are the reverse. The shaggy and rugged and gritty, or those who have an admixture of earth or dung in their composition, have the impressions indistinct, as also the hard, for there is no depth in them. And the soft too are indistinct, for their impressions are easily confused and effaced. Yet greater is the indistinctness when they are all jostled together in a little soul, which has no room. These are the natures which have false opinion. For when they see or hear or think of anything, they are slow in assigning the right objects to the right impressions. In their stupidity, they confuse them, and are apt to see and hear and think amiss. And such men are said to be deceived in their knowledge of objects and ignorance. Theaetetus. No man, Socrates, can say anything truer than that. Socrates. Then now we may admit the existence of false opinion in us. Certainly. And of true opinion also? Yes. We have at length satisfactorily proven beyond a doubt that there are these two sorts of opinion. Undoubtedly. Alas, Theaetetus, what a tiresome creature is a man who is fond of talking. Theaetetus. What makes you say so? Socrates. Because I am disheartened at my own stupidity and tiresome garrulity. I already blocked it off this morning because I knew I was going to be short of time. And I don't know this word, so I looked it up, and I did try to learn the pronunciation, but I forgot it. I have soft wax, I'm sorry. But it means excessive talkativeness, especially on trivial matters. Because I'm disheartened at my own stupidity and tiresome, excessive talkative, especially on trivial matters. For what other term will describe the habit of a man who is always arguing on all sides of the question, whose dullness cannot be conceived, and who will never leave off? Theaetetus. But what puts you out of heart? Socrates. I am not only out of heart, but in positive despair. For I do not know what to answer if anyone were to ask me, "O Socrates, have you indeed discovered that false opinion arises neither in the comparison of perceptions with one another, nor yet in thought, but in union of thought and perception?" Yes, I shall say, with the commonplace of one who thinks that he has made a noble discovery. Theaetetus, I see no reason why we should be ashamed of our demonstration, Socrates. Socrates. He will say, you mean to argue that the man whom we only think of and do not see cannot be confused with the horse, which we do not see or touch, but only think of and do not perceive? That I believe to be my meaning, I shall reply. Theaetetus, quite right. Socrates. Well then, he will say, according to that argument, the number 11, which is only thought, can never be mistaken for 12, which is only thought. How would you answer him? Theaetetus. I should say that a mistake may very likely arise between the 11 or 12, which are seen or handled, but that no similar mistake can arise between the 11 and 12, which are in the mind. Socrates. Well, but do you think that no one ever put before his own mind 5 and 7? I do not mean 5 or 7 men or horses, but 5 or 7 in the abstract, which, as we say, are recorded on the waxen block, and in which false opinion is held to be impossible. Did no man ever ask himself how many these numbers make when added together, and answer that they are 11, while another thinks that they are 12? I'm another. Or would all agree in thinking and saying that they are 12? When you're so drunk, you think it admirable to be able to count 5 and 7. Add up 5 and 7. Theaetetus, certainly not, but would... Oh, he's a boy. Certainly not, but many would think that they are 11, and in the higher numbers the chance of error is still greater, for I assume you to be speaking of numbers in general. Socrates, exactly. And I want you to consider whether this does not imply that the 12 in the waxen block are supposed to be 11. Theaetetus, yes, that seems to be the case. Socrates. Then do we not come back to the old difficulty? For he who makes such a mistake does think one thing which he knows to be another thing which he knows. But this, as we said, was impossible, and afforded an irresistible proof of the non-existence of false opinion, because otherwise the same person would inevitably know and not know the same thing at the same time. Most true. Then false opinion cannot be explained as the custom of thought and sense, for in that case we could not have been mistaken about pure conceptions of thought, and thus we are obliged to say either that false opinion does not exist, or that a man may not know that which he knows. Which alternative do you prefer? Theaetetus. It's hard to determine, Socrates. The other translation says something like, you leave me with an impossible choice, I think, if I remember correctly. Socrates. And yet the argument will scarcely admit of both. But as we are at our wits' end, suppose that we do a shameless thing. What is that? What is it? Let us attempt to explain the verb. The verb. To know. The Greek is epistemai. Theaetetus. And why should we be shameless? And why should that be shameless? Socrates, you seem not to be aware that the whole of our discussion from the very beginning has been a search after knowledge, of which we are assumed not to know the nature. Episteme. Nay, but I am well aware. Socrates, and is it not shameless when we do not know what knowledge is to be explaining the verb to know? The truth is, Theaetetus, that we have long been infected with logical impurity. Thousands of times have we repeated the words we know and do not know, and we have or have not science or knowledge. And if we could understand what we are saying to one another, so long as we remain ignorant about knowledge, and at this moment we are using the words we understand, we are ignorant, as though we could still employ them when deprived of knowledge or science. Theaetetus. But if you avoid these expressions, Socrates, how will you ever argue at all? Socrates. I could not, being the man I am. The case would be different if I were a true hero of dialectic, and oh, that such a one were present, for he would have told us to avoid the use of these terms. At the same time, he would not have spared in you and me the faults which I have noted. But seeing that we are no great wits, shall I venture to say what knowing is? For I think that the attempt may be worth making. Theaetetus. Then by all means venture, and no one shall find fault with you for using the forbidden terms. Thus far our scripture of the evening. So I wrote down perceptual confusion. And I wrote like the dark rabbit. Because we know that sometimes there's images that we see that we think we see differently. The thing foremost in my mind now is the picture with colored blocks, and then there's clearly one that's orange and one that's brown, but actually it's the same color. They're just in different places, so they look like they're completely different colors. Or the rabbit in the duck, or the glass and the two faces, or those visual confusions, which we think we see one thing, but we could see it another way. And the color, I think, is most telling, because we are so sure that we see two different colors. But if you cover the rest of the page, you will see that it's only what this is. It's completely the same color. So perceptual confusion is not... We're no strangers to perceptual confusion, that's for sure. And then I wrote down the quote, to think truly is noble, and to be deceived is base. To be noble. How does one think truly? So this morning, after I was reading it, I was thinking of various ways in which we deceive ourselves. And I had many thoughts on huge prefrontal cortexes. But now, which is probably the most appropriate for me to talk about, otherwise I might get distracted, is all the biases we have. Heuristics being another way for it. To think truly is noble. It's not as simple as we think it is. We take for granted that human beings have intellectual capacity. But John has this thing which he always says, and I'm going to completely screw it up now. The same machinery that makes us highly adaptable also makes us susceptible to self-deception. I don't think that was screwed up too much, actually. We really need to actually put in quite a lot of effort to be able to think truly nobly. It's not something that comes naturally. And if you want to really become super sexy, and I'm speaking to the men mostly. As a woman, I do not know what men find sexy. Or what anyone who is attracted to a female finds sexy, is to meditate. Because it enhances the prefrontal cortex, apparently. And there is nothing more sexy than a fully developed humongous prefrontal cortex. That is really the part of yourself that you should be concerned with, most of all. I noticed this morning already that when I said yesterday, somewhere in another dialogue, he goes into detail about this wax. It happens here. So there you go, you saw it. But what I found most telling of this representation of the wax is not so much his concern with whether it is soft or hard, but how big the soul is. And I wonder if there are ways to enlarge the soul as well. What do you think? Are there ways to enlarge the soul? We know that meditation enlarges the prefrontal cortex. I don't know to what extent. It's probably not that much, but it is measurable. But what enlarges the soul? When I was in Paris, the value of friendship really hit me very hard. I was in tears, appreciating the friends in my life. And if we take into consideration, oh my God, that I still have memory, can you believe it? What I said yesterday about how thinking is best done with others. Then now I have to also say, I do believe that maybe the best way to enlarge your soul is through friendship. May you cultivate many, but most importantly, high quality Aristotelian friendships. And may the spirit of Sophia be with you and yours.